Namaskar. Today I'm going to share a short reading from one of the passages of our Guru, Shrii Shrii Anandamurti, and talk about my understanding of it and share a few stories that help to illustrate the point. So this is part of a new series that I want to work on, where I bring to you some of the writings of our Guru that I really enjoy and I think are very helpful for all of us on the spiritual journey. My name is Dada Krishna Sevananda. I'm a monk and meditation teacher at Anandagori Ashram in Denmark, and I make these videos to help bring enjoyment and interest and helpful tips and suggestions on the path of meditation and our spiritual journey. So I will start with the reading, and it's from a little book which probably many of you know already, The Thoughts of P.R. Sarkar. That was the legal name of our master. And it's from a chapter called Intellect and Intuition. When those who are guided by their own intellect and are experiencing the ups and downs of the world realize that their intellect is very small and is unfit for performing greater actions, they then find no alternative but to merge their minds in the mind of the great. Then their minds will be converted into cosmic mind, and whatever actions they perform will be correct actions. Therefore, those who are wise will try to merge their minds into the Supreme Mind. That alone will be the symbol of their wisdom. When one is not sufficiently advanced, one feels to perform actions with one's own intellect. But when one is much advanced, one begins thinking that one's own intellect is not at all sufficient for the task. This is the law of the world, that those who possess sufficient intellect say that they have none, but those who have none boast that they have a great deal. Boast means to brag, to speak about yourself. The means to have much knowledge is to understand that one has no knowledge. So for me, the last line, the means to have much knowledge is to understand that one has no knowledge, is the point that I really enjoy and find helpful. And right after that discourse, there's two more sentences from another source which makes the same point in slightly different words. One will not be able to know anything unless one develops the psychology of I know not. It is the fundamental spirit of a true aspirant. So I know not. Emptying the mind, getting rid of any knowledge or ideas that we have knowledge it makes sense that the more empty and free your mind is, the more space and the less resistance there is for anything new. And it's a wonderful feeling also to have that feeling of I know nothing. It's a kind of lightness and gives you a sense of porousness that, you when you think you know something, to the extent that there is something already there, it's blocking out your receptivity to what's around you. So the means to have much knowledge is to understand that one has no knowledge. I think that's not that difficult to understand, and it's such a beautiful point. There's a couple of beautiful stories that illustrate this. One is very well known. A professor who was a disciple of a master went to visit him, hoping to get some fresh instruction. And when he sat down in front of the master poured him some tea. And when the glass was full, the master didn't stop pouring. He kept pouring, and the tea was overflowing and going everywhere. So naturally, the student, who was of a very intellectual mind, got surprised and said the obvious thing, "Why are you doing that?" And the master replied, "Well, you can't put anything more into something which is already full." So the lesson for the student was that there was nothing he could learn from the master because his mind was already full of so much knowledge, or at least he thought it was. So first we have to empty everything that we think we know. Let go of it, be empty, be open, be clear, I know nothing. And that creates the conditions in which we can easily absorb spiritual knowledge. But the story that I really want to share is one of my favorite stories, and it's on the same theme. So it goes like this. There was a village of very spiritual people, and because they were so interested in spirituality, whenever they heard of a wise person, they would invite them to come and share their knowledge with them. So one day a traveler passed through the village and told them of a wise woman who lived far away in the mountains. So very interested, the villagers got together and sent one of their number to go and invite her. And after a long time, she finally came, and she stood up on a platform in the town square, and everybody was gathered there, and she gave her namaskar and asked them a question. "Do you know what I'm going to talk to you about today?" And as they had invited her to speak about spirituality, they said, "Yes." And then she said, "Well, if everybody already knows about the topic, there's no point to talk. Namaskar." And she left. Well, the villagers were surprised and somewhat disappointed, and they got together and they discussed what had happened. And they were very attracted by her appearance, and they felt that just from her presence that she had something important to share with them. So they concluded that they must have made a mistake, and they decided to go and invite her again. And if she asked the same question, then instead of saying yes, they would say no. So with this plan, again, they sent one of the villagers to go and invite her. And after a long time, she came. And as on the previous occasion, she got up on the place to speak and looked down on everybody and gave them a deep namaskar and said to them, "Do you know what I'm going to talk to you about today?" And this time, as they had practiced, everybody said, "No." And then she replied, "Well, if nobody knows anything about the topic, what point is there to talk? Namaskar." And she left. Well, this time the villagers were really mystified and confused, and they got together and talked for a long time, and they decided that they must have given the wrong answer, and they thought about what they could say instead, and they came up with a plan. They decided that they would invite her again, And if she asked the same question, half of them would say yes, and the other half would say no. So with this excellent plan, they sent one of the villagers off to invite her again. And after a long time, she came. As usual, she got up in front of them, gave a beautiful namaskar, smiled sweetly, and said, "Do you know what I'm going to talk to you about today?" And as they had rehearsed, those on the left said yes, and those on the right said no. And she replied, "Good. So, will those on the left please explain to those on the right?" Namaskar. And she left. Well, now the villagers were just totally confused. They talked all night, but they still couldn't come up with a solution. But even more than before, they felt that she had something, and they really wanted to get that wisdom and that knowledge that she had, but they simply had no idea what they should reply. So this time, without any plan, but with a strong desire, they sent one of the villagers just to, try their luck and ask her to come again. And they were very pleased when one day she finally came. So as before, she stood up in front of them, gave a beautiful namaskar, smiled sweetly, and said, "Do you know what I'm going to talk to you about today?" Well, this time, there was pin-drop silence. Nobody said yes, nobody said no. Nobody had any idea what to say. They just stood there in the stillness. And as the seconds ticked by, the stillness deepened and became true silence. And at one point, in the depth of that silence, without words, all the wisdom of the wise woman silently passed to the villagers. And in that moment, they were all truly satisfied and felt they had received what they were looking for. The old woman gave namaskar and left. So I think this story beautifully illustrates the point of the reading from our master. The secret for having much knowledge is to understand that one has no knowledge. So on the last occasion, the villagers had no idea. They admitted their unknowingness and their emptiness. And in that condition, they could receive the wisdom which she wanted to give to them. I think it also talks about or illustrates the point that she was a very skilled teacher. When she first came, she knew that they were not ready or able to receive the wisdom that she had for them. And so over a series of visits, she gave them the experiences that would bring them to that state of readiness, help them let go of what they thought they knew and come before her in a state of purity and emptiness, ready to receive. In Tantra, there is a description of what is a great guru and what is a good guru and what is a good disciple. And it is said that if you have a good guru and a good disciple, magic happens. So she here was an example of a good teacher, a good guru, and they, in their final condition, were an example of a good disciple. So thank you very much. I hope you found that stimulating and enjoyable, and I hope you find something useful in it. Have a great week. Namaskar.